We're ready. Almost.
Should you put the headphones on?
Oh, okay. I need to just make sure. You want to get it like that. Like, wait, as close as you can get it to yourself. If it lets you. We may have to... Oh, I gotta go. Hold on. So you guys try to follow suit. Okay, so, Jean, if you could take it and move it like this. And what that does is it actually helps you not pop your pee.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
If you could just do it like,
like
that.
that.
Like
okay.
on the side. So it goes,
no
like,
problem.
for whatever reason, if it's straight on, it pops harder.
Okay.
Okay.
This is okay.
I think we're ready.
Do I get a plug in?
Okay. You don't have to listen. I mean, you're going to hear me,
okay.
but it's cool.
Cool.
It's, okay. Jean, Matthew, Danielle, Jean A. Felice II, you like to say? Okay.
Jean Felice is fine too. That's my full name.
I'm a junior.
Normal. You're a junior?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't go by that. If I live in the same town.
Yeah.
Welcome to this week's Artist on Art. I am your host, Nada Milkovich. I had a little brief hiatus last week due to a strike here on campus, thanks to the DJ Joe for taking over last week. I will not cross a picket line, especially when it has to do with the great TAs here at UCSC and course assistants and all those people that make this place so great, basically. So there you go. Glad to be back on the air. You are listening to KZSC Santa Cruz. This is Artist on Art. This is the interview show that likes to talk to artists and people who view their world as art, their life as art. I have a great pleasure of speaking to 3 artists today from the Danum program. Here today is Jean A. Felice II. Hi, Jean.
Hello.
I've got Matthew Jameson.
Hey there.
And Danielle Williamson.
Hello.
So Danielle is a little... can you talk again, please?
Yes, hello.
And so this is a really fun thing for me because I graduated from Danum in 2009, and the big reason, one of the big giant reasons that I have this show today is because of the Danum program and them supporting me and allowing me to take the radio class that you have to take, that's mandatory to be able to get a show here. And I was able to do that and pass the class, which is not very easy. And then I got my first show January of 2009, my first Artist on Art. Since then, I've had over 320 guests on the show that I've been able to podcast and videocast. And again, all to the thanks of the great program, that Digital Arts and New Media program here. And what I've been doing is interviewing as many of the Danumites as possible. I've got a pretty good archive. I'd say about 90% of the graduates that have gone through are on this radio show and on the website Artist on Art. And so I'm beginning this, this would be the 5th year of interviewing the graduating Danumites, and so that's who Jean, Matthew, and Danielle are here at the beginning of all of April. We'll be talking each week with the various artists that are graduating in a very difficult program, I believe, and so it's a great pleasure and honor that you all had the time, really, to come on up here, because it is so arduous and labor-intensive and mind-intensive, and it's like kind of having a baby is what y'all are in the last throes of doing right now. And the baby is going to be delivered May 1st here in the Digital Arts and Research Center. That's the dark. That's in front of the music building, underneath the art barns, and over in the whole theater department on the west side. We have our beautiful dark Digital Arts Research Center, and there we will be able to see all of the graduating artists, because a part of graduating is having a project that has been exhibited. And so we're going to be talking today about your graduating projects and kind of the philosophies that got behind what interested you and why you went there. And so, Jean, let's start with you. You are, you call yourself split in 3 directions, art, design, and education. I kind of understand where you're feeling, what you're doing there and your tripleness. You're an interactive artist.
Yeah.
And you, well, why don't we start with your education? Tell us about how you teach.
Well, you know, I did my undergrad at Ohio State back in the day, and I quickly, you know, just to give you that background on how I balanced my life, I got pulled into the design world for a while. I was definitely in the art and technology realms, did design work, graphic design, web design for, I don't know, 6-7 years, but then, you know, I was lucky. My mentors at Ohio State asked me to start teaching there again. So my first introduction to the world of education and teaching was doing 3D modeling and animation classes at Ohio State, and at the same time they had one of those really early but awesome 3D printers, and no one knew how to use it, so they asked me if I could figure it out and then teach everyone else how to use it, and so that got me started on the path. So I taught at Ohio State for a few years, really enjoyed that, really working across different departments, architecture, industrial design, all of that. And then my wife and I decided we needed to get a little more nature in our lives, the flatlands of Ohio.
There wasn't enough nature there for it?
I mean, there is nature. It's
there
hidden
is.
in these little nooks and crannies. But I'm originally from Pittsburgh, and I'm kind of a hills and river kind of guy. And so we escaped to the beautiful land of Asheville, North Carolina, and Appalachia, and lived there for about 5 years, and that's where I really got involved in education. I started teaching at the University of North Carolina in their new media program, and I also started teaching at this really neat community school called the Odyssey Community School. And I learned these ways of kind of integrating different disciplines together, where you could teach math, history, science with a creative arts wrapper all around it. And you can call that interdisciplinary, you can call that integral, there's all these different ways of calling it. But my wife's a teacher, my parents are teachers, my sister's a teacher, so it's always been kind of in the family.
Wonderful. And so then what brought you to the Danum department?
Well, you know, I spent about 10 years, maybe 12 years after my undergrad, like I said, doing all these different things. But I always wanted to have that privilege, that time, that space to really focus 100% on my work. You know, when I say balancing between art, design, and education, it really is a balancing act. It's spending 3/4 of the time that you have doing 3 different things so that then you can spend 1/4 of your time doing that one thing that you really wish you could focus on all the time, which is my artwork. And so that delicate balance just got more and more difficult to do, and you know, I saw this amazing program happening here in Santa Cruz, and I had always loved Santa Cruz from earlier visits in my early 20s. I used to love this town. I'd come through for a week at a time and just relax in the fog, and when I realized what an amazing program the Danum program had going on in the dark facility, I had to apply, and they wanted me, so here I am.
Yay! And now you're graduating.
And now I'm graduating 2 blurry years later.
And so you've got a big project going on that's going to be happening April 19th.
Yeah, so that's kind of this like side project, aside from my thesis work. It definitely ties in. It's all about ocean ecology, and it's about art and science collaborating, but it's also about reaching out in the community beyond the bounds of the university, beyond the academic kind of borders. And so yeah, this is called Bloom Santa Cruz, and it's going to take place down at Lighthouse Point on April 19th. It's a week from this Saturday, and it kind of dovetails the City of Santa Cruz Earth Day events. They end at 5, we start at 6, and we go till 11 o'clock, and we're going to take over the whole Lighthouse Point grounds. We're going to illuminate the lighthouse with video mapping and texturing. We're going to have performance art from Eve Warnock. We're going to have Danny here doing some amazing work with her project. We're going to have just a wonderful variety, about a dozen different artists coming together.
And so Eve Warnock graduated last year from the Digital Arts and New Media as a filmmaker, interactive digital artist. Because
exactly.
Who graduates in Danum with only one noun? It's all hyphenated.
And Eve and I go back. We were both Ohio State grads, and we knew each other back in the day. So we've collaborated a lot over the years. She's actually the one that drew me up here. She's like, you got to check out this program, Gene. You're going to love it.
And so, what is your thesis project?
My thesis project is called Oceanic Scales. And this is a project, when I moved here, I'm a very site-specific, kind of landscape-oriented artist. I try to get in tune with the environment that I'm living in and tap into the resources that I have available. So, when faced with living by the ocean for the first time, I was completely enchanted, but, where do you begin with such a vast source of inspiration? So I decided to start with the smallest unit possible. I started with phytoplankton. I was really intrigued by bioluminescence. I was also really allured by their beautiful geometries, these natural geometries when you look at their little calcium carbonate skeletons, both in microscopy and in old drawings and sketches from different naturalists. And so I just cracked this door open. I started in mechatronics with Jennifer Parker in the Open Lab group. She really encourages these kind of art and science collaborations, but also interdisciplinary collaborations. And so I started a little bit of research, and that door cracked wide open to just show this entire system that I wasn't even aware of, how integral phytoplankton are to this entire ocean food web.
And so how has the project, what kind of form has it taken on?
Well, like I said, we started about a year ago, and we pulled together probably about 35 different artists across multiple departments. But the form of this takes basically kind of I'm riding this fence between, is this an art installation, is this a science exhibit, is this both, is this kind of a blend? It takes the form of a kind of a big immersive space that you walk into, large sculptural forms, what I call outcroppings, that are kind of coated with all of these different little machinic phytoplankton. So I took kind of a biomimicry approach. I took the inspiration of the form and functions of these organisms, blew them up in scale, made these invisible organisms visible, and then also made it interactive. So if you walk in, there's kind of a passive state. If you don't interact with it, it shows a translation of live data from the Monterey Bay Research Institute's Elkhorn Slough. So we show a translation of temperature, pH levels, and nitrogen levels. However, if you decide to interact with it, if you take on the role of the geoengineer, you can try these cause and effect scenarios. What happens if I try to control this ecosystem? What happens if I turn things up too hot? If I make it too cold? If I turn up the pH too much? How are these little machinic phytoplankton going to respond? And it's you can collapse the system. You can try to, a lot of people just want to crash the whole thing. That's their first instinct. But then it's much harder to bring it into some sort of harmony. So that's kind of what the form of it takes. Back
into balance. And so, Gene, is this will there be like a table at which people are going to be controlling the sculpture? And how big is the sculpture?
Well, there's going to be 3 wall units. Currently there's 2 done. We're starting to work on the 3rd, and they're about 8 feet high by 4 feet wide, and about 4 feet deep. And they're each one has 64 different kind of elements on it, a mixture of those machinic phytoplankton and these different elements that they respond to. And then there's a central control column that's very organic and kind of sea creature inspired, and that has these 3 control rings embedded on it. That's also 8 feet high. And so it can be a group exercise where 3 different people work together to try to balance out the system, or you can try it individually and see what happens.
Wow. And so a lot of this was done with 3D printing?
Yeah, one of the wonderful things about the DANA program, they've given me this opportunity to lead their 3D prototyping lab. And so I kind of teach everyone and do all the safety work on teaching everyone how to laser cut, how to 3D print, how to do this, how to do that, kind of based on what I did at Ohio State. And so a big part of this project was for me to figure out new ways to use this, contemporary technology, but mixing that with, older forms of technology. So one of the neat things I got to do was take a 3D print and then take that over to the foundry and use it to make a lost wax bronze casting. So I love making these hybrids between those worlds. And then another emphasis for me is really using ecologically minded materials and biodegradable materials, because there's no point in making a project about ocean health if the whole thing is made out of plastic that's going to end up in our oceans and landfills. So everything's made either from pine resin, corn plastic, locally sourced bamboo plywood, all these different natural materials, kelp, cardboard, etc.
You've been listening to Gene A. Felice II talk about his project, Oceanic Scales. It sounds fascinating. I can't wait to play with it. It's like a smart Disneyland kind of, it seems like.
Yeah, well, I hope you get kind of immersed, like you feel like you're going underwater or something when you enter the room.
Right. And so can I just ask you about these machinic phytoplasm? Are you talking about mechanized? Tell us, what are you talking about?
Well, I have to give the full credit for this whole idea of the machinic phytoplankton came from Ken Ronaldo, one of my old mentors at Ohio State. When I was teaching one of his classes, this was actually one of the projects, was like, have your students design like kind of a mechanically inspired microorganism from the ocean, or some like a mechanical version of a squid or a krill or this or that. And I always wanted to do that project myself. I'm teaching it, and so when I came here, I started down that road, and then I kind of took my own direction with it and evolved it and had my different team members evolve it as well. But yeah, the idea of biomimicry is inspiration from nature's form and function. I'm also interested in like the bioart world, but before I start to try to collaborate with the living organisms, I wanted to start from this kind of slightly removed position first, just really study them, understand their form, their function, and then go from there.
Wonderful. We're going to take a quick break here, play a little Cesaria Evora, and we'll be right back with, up next, Who's in the Hot Seat? Danielle Williamson. Stay tuned, everybody. Okay, how was that?